Welcome, beautiful souls, to this episode of Empress Rising Podcast. I am your hostess, Adia, the Mystic Empress herself, and today's intention for this episode is to talk about the very, very sensitive topic, but also big, huge superpower: receiving, receiving. Um, this has recently come up to me as a very, very big issue in my life, and I want to share it with you and share some concepts that I've learned and also the things that I'm going through within my journey, so that for those of you who are struggling with this topic, which I would say probably at least 90% of us are struggling with this, we can move forward together. This space always feels, I want to make it to feel, I want to make it feel like a special space that we can feel safe to lay down our armor from the world and soften our hearts and just be, and share what's been real for us. I'm going to share what's been real for me in this episode, especially because this is a very touchy subject. So, I feel like over the past month, especially when that new moon came out, I was like, what is going on? I feel overwhelmed with this. I feel like a lot of things, a lot of issues have been coming up about me that, when you're in your healing journey, you feel like, oh yeah, I'm able to do this now, and then the subject comes up and a real situation comes, a real one. And you're like, wait a second, I don't need that. And it's like, yeah, you do. So receiving the issue of receiving, the energy of receiving has come in to my life heavy and showing me that it's something that I need to work on, and it's something that I can go through, and it's a superpower that I can embody instead of hyper independence. So, it's one thing to be able to talk about it, encourage others to do it, and tell yourself this truth in the mirror, and it's another to actually be faced with this animal, because I feel like it's an animal. it's it's roaring in my face now. It's also something to be able to surrender to this concept and still be okay being you, right, and who you are. So to sit with this acceptance of surrender, of receiving, I have not been comfortable with, let alone like this whole month, I've not been comfortable in my body. Okay. So in my life, all the places that I've been working on, I feel like I didn't even realize that how much I was still fighting this. So today's episode is not a lesson by any means. Yeah, I have some suggestions on, some stuff that I'm working on or whatever, but this is pretty much a community letting go, community acceptance, community, just like a letter from my soul to yours. So if you too have been struggling with receiving, this is probably going to be for you. So before we get started, I want to just kind of set the energy. And I do have some notes, so I look down every now and then, but let's clear our energy and set the mood for this time. So if you feel safe, close your eyes. And I usually put one hand over my heart, one hand on my lower belly or your womb. And just close your eyes, and We're going to do some deep breaths. We're going to do our sacred pause and a couple of affirmations, and then we'll get started. So close your eyes now if you feel safe to do so. So take a deep breath in. Exhale slowly and gently. Deep breath in. Receive that breath. And as you exhale, let go of any tension, any holding on to anything that is not yours anymore. And one more deep breath in. Breathe in the possibility, breathe in freedom to receive. And exhale, slowly, gently, letting go of anything that you want to lay down today. And I'll give us a couple of affirmations we can say to ourselves, either out loud or just in your mind. I open my heart, hands, and life to receive with ease. I am worthy of every blessing meant for me, and I welcome it now without resistance. Let those words just sit and settle in to your body. And let those words just flow into the places that have been waiting. And just know that you are free. You are free to receive in this place. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can open up your eyes gently. So, I'll be honest. Receiving has not been very easy for me. Okay. Even though I've been working through a lot of issues on my, my healing journey, the issues that main providers have, that is going to be one of the biggest issues that's going to be there for until you release it, until you finally say, I am free to receive, I am okay to receive. It doesn't make me weak to receive. It doesn't make me less of a person to receive, right? So just take for instance me, my story. I'm the oldest daughter, so automatically we become the second mama in the house. We become, that energy that is more dominant than others. So those of you who are dating an oldest daughter or are married to one, understand and know that's what you're dealing with, right? But the thing is just because they have a dominant energy does not mean that they automatically want to have that energy. It's just something that's with them, that's a part of their nature because of the nature of the household, right? So when it comes to finance, struggle, that's one thing that they're going to be up on, right? Most of the time, because some people will say, I'm the youngest daughter, I'm the dominant one. Okay. But I'm saying, for the most part, I know a lot of oldest daughters that are very, very dominant, very used to being the mama, right? And so for me, I would say that throughout my life, I took on part of my mother's struggle, right, within my being, within my heart. And so when I went away to college, I knew that she was not going to be able to support me in any way. I went away to college, so I took on that responsibility. This is all me. She can't handle it because, what am I going to do? Say, Mommy, I need some money, and then what's she going to do? go borrow it from somebody else, or she gonna try to make it happen how she make it happen, right? And that's even more stress, more strain on her. So I took it on myself. And so the thing is that even though you go through life and you feel like you holding it down for yourself, um, you miss out on a lot of things when you are developing that hyper independence, because in college I didn't have the rich uncle, I didn't have the rich relative that could be able to bail me out at any time. I didn't have rich friends, I didn't have and when I say rich, I mean, they had money to spend on me, like extra money. Nobody had extra money. And I would say that even while I was in college, nobody really checked on me because I was the oldest daughter. And when you're the oldest daughter and you actually go by that saying, she's got her head on her shoulders, nobody checks on you, right? Nobody checks on you. Nobody says, well, this and that or the other. Now, I've had it to where people, after a while would say, if you need anything, please let me know. But by that time, I didn't really take people seriously because that wasn't something that I was used to, right? So I went through college, I went through the military, being that hyper independent person. So I would say that for that person who's like that, you would never know that they're struggling unless you were invited to their personal private space. And even if you are in their personal space, you may never understand unless you dig into their when I talk about private space, I'm talking about up here, because they might look put together, right? They might look like I got it all together, but they don't. Okay? So for a long time, I just accepted that as my role, because I was able to provide for other people, because that was in my heart to do. And it was just who I was, So for most of my life, I was okay with just being the strong one, right? Being the one who people could depend on, because that was just who I was, right? But what I didn't see back then was how much of that strength came from survival mode. I just knew how to survive, right? I mean, coming from Brooklyn, New York, you learn how to survive. Okay? So not knowing that survival mode was actually part of my trauma, part of me not being able to open up to other people to say, hey, I need help. And that's a big issue, So it all stems from not wanting to be disappointed. I had been disappointed many times in my life, from men and women who would promise me things, who would say, I'm here for you, and they faltered, and it just different things that came into play. And and this is why you should never ever promise children anything unless you're actually unless it's right there and you're going to do it. But I would say, if you're wanting to do something for a child, then you need to absolutely just do it, right? Don't promise anything, just do it. Okay? Because after a while, those promises become sure. For me, I knew when people promised me things, after a while, I knew that they wanted to genuinely in their heart and maybe they weren't going to be able to. I knew that they had it in them to say, I really, I want to take y'all here or whatever. I'm going to take y'all here next week, and they wouldn't, and it would be one disappointment after another. But after a while, I just got to the point to where I could just shrug it off when you promised me, at the first beginning. So trust issues were there, and not wanting to owe anybody anything. In Brooklyn, we used to call people mooches all the time. Like, if you borrow some money, or not even borrow some money, because most of the time people borrowing money, they're not going to pay it back, so I didn't want to be that person who was continuously saying, can I borrow $20? Not realizing that sometimes people are just in that space where they don't have it, because not everybody is mismanaging money on purpose, right? Some people just mismanage, money, and they don't care. They just like, look, I'll just ask them for $20, $20 later. But there are those people who, there's just a point to where they just don't have it. I know with my family, we just didn't have it. We had the old-fashioned, food stamps, and my mother was in between jobs, and she was divorced, and things like that. So we struggled for a while, until she got on her feet, and we were semi-okay, But living in New York, it's, you're always just semi-okay. So also not trusting that love could come towards me without strings. So, a lot of people have conditions upon which they love you, right? So not trusting that someone could actually love me genuinely, love me unconditionally, and asking those questions like, okay, why do you love me so much? Like, what's special about me? And you're genuinely asking, because you're like, all these other people around here, why me? Why, what you want from me, kind of thing. So I had a lot of trust issues, and I had to work through those things continuously, over and over and over again, through cycles, and without, and I would say I was really, really disappointed by people within those loops that I was going through, because people continuously showed me, you show me any love and I'll give it back to you, but then, we get into some type of, argument or something like that, and it goes out the window. So trust, right? Trust is there. That is an issue with receiving, right? So, I really didn't want anyone to have anything to throw up in my face ever, because I might get loud with you, because first off, my heart, when I give, is not there. So I expect the same if someone genuinely wants to give it to me. So instead of going through the disappointment, I would say, you know what, you could keep it, I don't need it, So, like I said, I remember random people saying, if you need anything, friends, saying, if you need anything, and I'm sitting here like, you ain't got it like that. So don't offer. And and this was after college, because during college I was on my own. And now that I look at it, like my mother, other people have said, you didn't have to be like that, but that's how I felt. So that's what it was, right? Um, but I would, later on I would say, oh, okay, and just kind of look at them like, not creeped out, but like, like they were just this stranger that was in their car offering me candy. I'm like, by then it was kind of like, like a stray dog that that you're kind of offering food to, and they're like looking like, why are you being nice to me? So I was kind of, just taken back and not really trusting that people were genuine with me, right? But deep within, I was screaming. I was like, why can't I just say I need help? you know because you don't want to look a certain way. And you could call it pride, whatever it is, but I feel like, you ever have one of those dreams that you're like trying to talk and you can't say anything? It was something holding me back, saying, we'll be okay. We'll be okay without this, even though this person has it on the table, like, here. I just didn't know how to let it in. I didn't know how to let it in. I just really, truly did not know how. Because I never, I would say during childhood, like, I never really, I would have like random uncles come to the window and slip a little dollar in there and say, here, whatever. But I didn't have to go through the motions of asking either, because in my head there was nobody to ask. you know I had a great grandmother who, she would bring us fruits and vegetables, but you don't know their situation either. I didn't know that she was great with money, and my great grandmother was great with money. She had her own business and stuff like that. I didn't know any of that until later. And even after that, even after I knew that, it wasn't like I was gonna go run into them, because I had already been in this mindset of, I'm just gonna do it on my own. I just got to do it on my own. I don't want to have to go to somebody and be at their mercy, type of thing. So those moments, I would say, have stayed with me. And now in my more mature adult life, I see how I have been influenced. But in my in my in my lifetime now, I feel like I realized that all this time my soul was starving for softness, for more, for the power and the acceptance in myself to receive from others. But also, I would say, not just a receiving from others, but an embracing of the abundance that's within me first, right? And the thing is that if you are having this issue with receiving, that is also a part of the lack mindset. And you say, how? Because I don't have it, right? I don't have it, so, I'm so-called lacking it, right? No, it's, if you know that you are an abundant creature, right? If you are one who abundance follows, who is abundance, then receiving should be no issue. That goes back to your self-concept. So if you know that you are abundance, then you should have no problem with receiving from outside sources as well, right? Because eventually you'll have to receive material gain, right? And or material help, right? So I would say that within my life, I had only allowed for strength. And I feel like it wasn't even like all the way a genuine strength. It was a facade of strength, right? Because, the black woman, the strong black woman persona is a dominant state that we try to uphold. And, we are strong, but that's not all that we are, right? We are whole. We are all of the above, all of the emotions. We have all of that stuff, right? And we're the whole package. We're a full package. And with that, there's no need for us to be hard anymore. There's no need for us to push away help. There's no need for us to push away the things that we should be receiving, the things that we should feel free to receive, right? And so within our flow state, we're bringing in being soft and tender, and that can be an issue for us, right? It's where healing flows like a river. It's flowing towards us if we let it, right? If we let it take us where it wants to take us, then we will experience that abundance that is flowing through us, to us, in us, and from other sources as well, right? So receiving as a practice. Are y'all ready? Y'all ready? So remember, this is not a checklist. It's not a performance. It's not something to fake. This is just something that I put together to help us. Something that I have to work on as well. Being open and honest, I have to work on these things because this is a part of who I actually am. This is a part of your true self and who you need to be, right? So, you can add or take away whatever you want. It's just suggestions, and maybe accountability for some of us, right? So sometimes being in the flow of receiving looks like when someone offers something like help, to help me with something, even if I can do it myself, I say yes. And especially if I can't do it myself at the time, saying yes. And that's a biggie for me. Saying, okay, or even saying I need help, because knowing within yourself, saying I need help or saying, could you please help me? Whew. Breathe. That's something that is a very tender issue for me. I needed help over these last few weeks, and help was offered, and at first I turned it down because I didn't feel it in my body. I didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. I felt like I felt weak. Honestly, I felt weak. I felt like I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do these things, but I ended up saying yes, and it affected me so deeply, of the person's love for me, of the person's care for me. It affected me so deeply that after that, I think I haven't cried like that in years and years and years. And I'm talking about boo-hoo, like ugly cry. And I could probably cry now thinking about it, because I really hadn't been showed that much genuine love in a long time, like a long time, in that way. Okay, so the next one, not brushing off someone's compliment, but letting it actually set in to your body and not deflecting it. So someone says, "Girl, I love your hair." Letting it sit in your body and saying, "Thank you," or, "I appreciate that." Instead of, "Girl, I gotta get a retwist. I gotta get it retied. I gotta, it's dirty." Whatever. Um, let's stop deflecting and accept it and let it sit in your body, because there are parts of you that need that. There are parts of you that need to receive those things. Being able to have someone open the door for you and not just shutting it off and saying, "Oh, I got it." How many times do we do that? Because we don't know how to simply receive. Letting It can also look like letting yourself rest without guilt, right? Because we're afraid of being called lazy. We're afraid of looking lazy, right? Which stems from long, long, long time ago, before you even born. And being called trash because you're taking care of yourself, being called selfish, being called all kinds of other things, right? Which will cause you to shut down, right? Because you do need rest, especially as a woman, especially as a feminine energy. You need rest. Within the woman, there are times where you need more rest than others, right? Women are cyclical, right? They go on cycles, right? Just like the moon goes on different cycles. It goes away and then it comes back again. It goes away and then comes back again. And for us, we get energized and then we need our rest. We get energized and we need our rest at times, and we need to be able to think about those things. I think about back in the day, I would say like around the 90s, right? That I can remember. Women would definitely get so insulted and so upset because a man would say, "Oh, she must be on her period." And the thing is, even though they said it as an insult, like a lot of men would say that as an insult, or maybe even other feminine beings, right, would say it as an insult. It could actually really be true, right? So the thing is that as we care for ourselves, we have to see, I'm being really irritated. I'm irritable. I'm very irritated right now. Okay, maybe I'm in this phase. Maybe I'm in that phase. Oh, I'm so energized. I must be in this phase, right? I'm on my menstrual. That means maybe you have to rest more. Or some women have even said, this is my time to be a little bit more active. Not as active as I would be after it, but I can still be, still keep some momentum. Maybe it's the time right before you have your menstrual, that you can say, I really need this rest time, right? So just understand and know, like, you're not lazy for wanting to rest. A lot of us have gone through trauma. A lot of us are working through trauma. And as you work through trauma, as you heal from trauma, as you heal from, it doesn't even have to be a huge traumatic incident or lifetime. It could just be, you were in survival mode for some reason. When you're coming out of survival mode, which has layers in itself, you need rest. Your body is going from fight or flight, fawn, freeze, fawn, all those things. It's coming from being very, very tense and you being on the defensive all the time, to a state where you don't have to be at war, right? So you look at soldiers, right? They used to be in battle, right? They used to be, used to being in battle. They used to being deployed overseas, and their mindset is sharp. I need to be this, that, and other, right? And then they come back over here, and even though they're debriefed or whatever, their minds are still in that fight or flight, right? So when you're coming out of survival mode, which that's what I am doing. I'm coming out of survival mode. I'm not totally out, but because what I've grown to know is that these are layers to all of this stuff, right? But I no longer have the anxiety that I did. I no longer have the digestive issues that I did. I am still working through overthinking. I'm still working through different things, right? But within that, I don't use those things as an excuse to not do anything, right? Because resting does not mean don't do anything, right? Resting could be going to sleep. It could be taking a walk without any stimulation, right? Or less stimulation, like you don't have any earphones or whatever. You're just letting things be, right? It could be sitting down, deep breathing. It could be writing. It could be anything, And the thing is that this list that I'm giving you, it all depends on you. Like I said, add or subtract, whatever it is. And whatever resonates in this podcast episode, you definitely need to take. And if none of this does, then I'm glad you were here, and hope to see you next time. But everything is dependent upon you. This is subjective, right? There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to you, right? And I had to learn that. I can't tell everybody, oh no, that's not the right way, because you know what? Some people might say, look, if I just hug a tree in the morning, I'm good. If I just go out and lay out on the grass, I'm good. If I take a bath, I'm good. I don't need all these other things. If I deep breathe, I'm good. And some people might say, I need all of that. And I'm here to tell you, I need all of it, right? There's some things that have affected me more than others, or helped me more than others, but and there are certain different times where I need one thing over another, right? So also, I would say during the day, just pausing could help. Just pausing, sitting with yourself, maybe even for a minute, maybe a couple of minutes, and in the middle of the day, or whenever, when you get time, or making time, and just whispering to yourself, I am worthy of receiving blank. You fill in the blank. I'm worthy of receiving whatever it is. Maybe someone has offered you something. Maybe you are, like I was, very jittery about making this podcast in the first place. Maybe, whatever it is, put that in that blank and tell yourself that you are worthy of doing that thing. You're worthy of it. So I've been working on a couple of these. I've been working on them. And I've also asked for accountability, help, to be able to see when I'm fighting something, when I'm not. And even though it's still very uncomfortable for me, I know that within divine feminine energy, that energy naturally is an energy to receive. It's a receiving energy, right? Just like when you have when you have a plug, right? You go to the wall. The plug, the hole in the wall that you plug the plug in, right? That's the receiving end. That's the female and the male in, right? So you have to, that's just in our nature. So we're going against our nature when we're like, no, thank you. Or what? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use your intuition, because you need to use your intuition. You need to trust that intuition to say, not this person. I'm not taking from that person. Maybe you learn from an episode from that person, or you kind of feel like they feel kind of sketchy. I don't want to take from them, right? And then you have to know which part of you is fearful of this, and which part of you is simply the intuition part, right? If it just doesn't feel right in your body, as far as this feels fishy, like something's up with this or whatever, you have to know whether it's your trauma talking or if it's really your intuition. With your intuition, you won't have the fear. You won't have the, you'll feel it in your body, like, I'm totally calm with this. Like, this is not the person. I don't need that from them, right? And then there's another part where it could just be fear. Like, I don't want to take from anybody. So I will tell you this, that when I realized that receiving is something that I need to do more of, even just a little bit at a time, love came in, right? I started to receive more love. And the uncontrollable crying came also. But then you get unexpected help. Receiving something that I didn't expect, and having to be okay with that, and saying, you're not a mooch, you're not somebody that people have to be leery of now because you've taken a gift, right? Also, my heart space felt so full. Like, y'all, when you get from the right person, your heart space feels like an overwhelming fullness. Like, it feels like it's bursting with love. You feel the love from that person, right? That they genuinely care about you. And that's something that a lot of us haven't felt in so long, right? Haven't felt in a whole long time, like maybe ever, right? And then also feeling like this is one less burden on my shoulders, and feeling worthy of not having to have burdens, right? Because you're a great person, and you need to have other people show you that, and to take care of you too. Because not that you have to earn it, right? It's not something you earn, but that you are a great person, and you would do the same. You have done the same, and for you to let other people do for you too, right? So, um, so being you need to be able to have life support you. You need to be able to um, have other people support you, because you are a part of the community, right? So if you can't let other people support you, you in turn separate yourself from the community. You in turn separate yourself from the collective, right? And you are a part of that. So also having moments of stillness to feel like medicine for you. So what I mean by that is, when you're still, you become a part of you. You become one with yourself, right? So you can be in full gratefulness in that stillness. You can encourage yourself and say, you know what, we're going to receive today. And also taking into account that you are fully abundant, right? You are abundance. There's no doubt about that. And within abundance, it doesn't necessarily mean that cash is going to flow out of your butt, right? But cash is going to flow to you from somewhere, right? From unexpected places. And then also, not just money, but love, affection, and wisdom, and knowledge, and within your knowing, you're going to be able to receive all of that with happiness and gratitude, right? So, of course, though, this opened me up to other things as well. It brought up other things too, right? So there were quiet beliefs that were inside of me that I had to challenge. So one was, if I receive too much, then people expect things from me. They'll think less of me also, right? And I had to say, is that true? And that goes back to the whole conditional love thing, right? If someone gives me something and doesn't ask for it back, or there's no outward strings, do I need to believe that there are some hidden strings attached? And then also, if I let people in, I'll get hurt. That's another belief that I had. And you have to be willing to say, you know what, if I let the right people in, I won't get hurt. And within that goes back to trusting yourself. That goes back to loving yourself. Because if you love yourself, and you love yourself properly, you will be able to, in turn, love others properly, and people will be able to know how to properly love you, because you will, in turn, have healthy boundaries. You'll have healthy communication with those people. And, not to say that you won't get hurt to an extent, but it's not going to be on the scale of, I didn't see this coming, not saying that it's foolproof, but it will, it'll level out some of those things, right? So also I had the belief of, I don't want to owe anybody anything. Coming from Brooklyn, New York, you don't want to owe nobody nothing. You don't want nobody having nothing over your head. You don't want nobody having, nothing to say about you. You want to be that person to be like, I don't owe nobody nothing. right? And and I don't think that that's a great place to be in, because then it definitely starts to shut you down from the abundance, the love, the prosperity, you know, and being able to shine your light as well. Because you know what, if we got a whole bunch of people around here that says, I don't want to owe anybody anything, then nobody will be able to give or receive anything. And like I said, this does not end or stay in the bracket of money. This is with love. This is with sharing anything, sharing your life, right? So also the belief of I should be able to do this on my own. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do it right now. Sometimes the lesson is take it. Right? And when I'm saying this, I'm saying it to myself. I'm looking at myself in the camera and I'm like, take it, right? This person loves you. This person cares about you. They want to be there for you. They're able to do it. And maybe there's going to be a point in time where you're able to do for them. You know, I look back when my best friend and I used to go out, right? Sometimes I had money, sometimes she had money, and you know, maybe one of us didn't have money. I got you, right? And it was that form of love that we had for each other, and still have for each other, that was like, you know what, I could definitely have somebody's back and not even think twice about it. Like, that was one relationship that I knew she wasn't looking for anything back. I wasn't looking for anything back. And we were just looking for each other's company. You know, let's go. Where are we going? Right? I got you. Or she would be like, I got you. And I didn't have to worry. Like, I wasn't like, you think I could get this? You know, like, and I feel like we should all find those people that we're that comfortable with, right? And that goes back to me being able to receive from people and not having to take a deep breath in order to communicate with them, like, this is what I need, right? And not being afraid, because it's fear, right? Fear of judgment, fear of resentment, fear of abandonment, fear of how you're going to be looked at, fear of just fear. So, you know, what's so wild is that none of these beliefs that I have are true in themselves, right? They're not born from truth. You know, they may have, there may be some truth with them with certain experiences, but it doesn't have to all be true, right? And that's why, you know, when we have adverse thoughts, we should either silence them with a shut up, that ain't true, or question the validity of the statement, right? Is this really true? But really, where are they born from? Old wounds, right? How people have done us, and what we didn't want to let in again, what we want to guard from, right? So we've experienced people that love with condition, which we don't want, because, you know, a lot of us, I would say women especially, we tend to love without condition. That's our tendency. I won't say everybody, but I would say we tend to love without condition. If I got it, you got it, right? But we tend to not get that reciprocity, and that's what we're afraid of. So, you know, I've learned from moments where I wasn't protected from the condition, or I thought maybe there wouldn't be any conditions when there were, right? And being with my best friend, I didn't have to worry about any conditions at all. I got it, you got it. She got it, I got it, right? So you also learn from being a caretaker too early, right? The oldest daughter, or, taking care of someone too early in your life, or even being a mother, right? Or being a caretaker for too long. I've been I would say, a caretaker for a lot of my life, and that can look different in different times of my life, right? I was a nurse, and in the military, I was a leader in the military. And you learn you have to take care of your soldiers. You have to take care of your patients. You have to take care of children. You have to take care of this person, that person, and then when your parents get older, you have to take care of them. You take care of your grandparents. You take care of all these people, right? And so you feel like it's got to be me. If it ain't me, who's it gonna be? And if somebody tries to take care of that person who's taking care of everyone, a lot of times it can be very, very challenging, and in a process of letting go of that role, of that mask that you had to take on for so long, right? So part of the receiving journey that I've been, open face smacked down with has been telling those old stories, telling those old experiences that they no longer have a place within my body. I'm letting them go. And noting and noticing that part of me, that version of me that needs to receive, which is this version now, is not weak. She's not weak. She's just ready to be held. She's ready to be held, y'all. And you have to be willing and ready to be held. Like, I feel like if all of us get ready to be held, make ourselves ready to be held, ready to receive, then we can all hold each other and be held at the same time. Because we notice that as we receive, we become even more abundant, right? As our tendency to allow the flow of receiving, allow the flow state to come into our lives, we become even more abundant, because we have filled ourselves so much with the receiving from other sources, even from ourselves. We're receiving love from ourselves continuously, right? We're loving ourselves all the way to the point of overflowing. We're able to flow to somebody else, right? We're able to love someone else in that way. We're able to give out of gratitude. We're able to say, you know what? I have, you have. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? So I would say that, after a while, all of us, in our days of learning to receive, we're going to start to look different, right? We're going to have more wisdom. We're going to be less on the I gotta work on, and more on the I let this happen to me, right? I let these things happen. I get to do these things, right? So I would say now I receive slow mornings, right? In the morning, I wake up and I rise with the sun. Um, even if I fall, you know, back asleep, I do still see the sunrise, and it's a very peaceful time for me. I'm able to receive that, right? I also receive through prayer. However you pray, right? I I affirm who I am. I affirm my role here. I affirm what I came to do. I affirm all the things that is me, and whoever else I want to pray for. I also receive through silence. I can sit with myself and really truly go within and see what I have to say. What is in my body, what is in my soul that I have to say to me, that I need to hear at that moment, or for the day, or for the time that maybe I'm going to sleep, or, during the day, whatever it is, right? I receive through subtle kindnesses from others. Um, whether it be someone opening the door for me, or someone helping me with my groceries. I remember one time I had these big bags of dog food. My mother, she loves dogs and she wants to feed dogs and stuff. So I was used to, lifting them into the cart and into my car. And I had already helped my mother to the car. And I came back around to put my, these big, huge 50-pound plus, bags into my car. And this guy said, you need help with that? And at first I said, no, I'm okay. And then I just came back to, like, girl, you about to break your back. You already have to lift this up and put it in your house. So I said, you know what, yes, please help me. And he said, no problem, I'm ready. I'm glad to help you. And that was like one less burden that I had to deal with. And it felt so good because the person wasn't looking for anything from me. But it was weird that someone was actually asking me to help me. And because I'm used to, y'all, look, when I'm out and about, I notice how many people are not willing to help you. Maybe I need to, get in the motion of asking, but, a lot of times they'll see, a lot of men, and it's, I won't say all men, I'm not doing that, but I will see, there's some men that, like, you see me struggling. You ain't like, can I help you? It ain't gotta be nothing else. It ain't gotta be nothing. It's just, can I help you, sis? Like, damn. So, anyway, um, I would say that this receiving in itself is a journey, right? So I will catch myself over and over again trying to overdo, or trying to overgive, or trying to deflect help, refusing it and saying, oh no, I'm okay. But you get better, right? You just have to get better with it. But now I know that, I know the importance, because there are important people, one in particular for me, that that wants to do these things for me, right? There are some people in this world that all they want to do is be there for you. All they want to do is maybe give you the world, give you whatever it is that you need in this world to help lift you up. And how could you say no to that? And I have to tell myself that over and over again. So I catch the tightness, the rushing, the I'll handle it energy, and I pause. I gotta pause, y'all. We gotta pause during the day. We have to pause, stop ourselves, and say, look, look, look. This person's trying to do for you. You know, you don't have to be the strong one, and that doesn't necessarily make you strong. If you are able to do for yourself, that doesn't make you strong all the time, right? Sometimes it actually makes you a little dumb. Because there are certain people in this world that want to do these things, and you know, in receiving, in letting them be a part of your life, you should be able to let them, right? So remembering all these truths about how wonderful it is to have this new ability to receive, it helps you to feel free somehow, right? Helps you to feel free because you have to let go of what was holding you in the first place from experiencing all that there is for you. You have to let go of all those things, because if you're not able to receive, then you're not fully free. If you're open, I'd love for you to, for you to think about these gentle questions. There's only a few of them. You might want to journal them, but there's no pressure to answer them in the comments or anything. If you want to share, please. But feel free to, share with others also. Because I know there are others out there, other empresses out there that are rising or trying to rise, and they need to reflect upon these things. So the first one is, where in my life am I still trying to earn love or support? Where in my life am I still trying to earn love or support? The next one is, when someone offers help, what comes up in my body? That's a big one for me, because often I feel it in my throat. Sometimes I feel it in my chest. Sometimes I feel it in my gut, but I would say most of the time I feel it in my heart, because it's like a dagger. And you're like, I want to say yes, but my nature won't let me. But then you have to go against that, and I would say it's not really your true nature. As a feminine being, receiving is your nature, right? So within the wounded masculine prototype, within the wounded feminine prototype, you are not receiving because you have been told that you have to do for yourself. You have been taught in some way. I won't say, in school or whatever. I won't say, someone said this or whatever, but in some way, whether it be someone else's actions, the way someone else acts, your role model or whoever it is, you have been taught, or it has been accepted that receiving is a weakness for you. And within femininity, that's just not acceptable. Right? Yeah. So the next question is, what would shift if I let myself be nourished without guilt? What would shift if I let myself be nourished without guilt? Where can I open just 10 more % to receive? Where can I open just 10 more % to receive? So let these sit with you. Write them down. Maybe use them as a journal prompt or something like that. and knowing that sometimes if you just sit with them, sometimes during the day or even at night when you're dreaming or something like that, a lot of times the answers reveal themselves in just whispers. You might wake up and say, oh, you might have an epiphany on something. You might get what we call a download, or something in your body says, I feel this. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Why am I feeling this? Just questioning all these things, and just let it sit with you. Sit with that. Well, Empress, thank you for sitting with me today on this very challenging at times topic, but eventually we'll get better and better and better, and the less struggle we will have with this, and we will understand and know that this is actually a superpower, if you will, right? Something that is going to supercharge us into our femininity first and foremost, and something that's going to help us to ascend even higher, right, in our femininity. So thank you for being with me for this episode. This was from my heart. This was from something that I have long observed in other people, and now am sitting with this in myself, in my body, okay? Because I know how hard it is how hard it can be to receive, especially when you spent years of, learning how to survive. Learning how to receive is like baby steps. So within my heart, I feel like I'm a tiny baby learning how to walk. And I'm like, please don't judge me on how I'm walking right now, because I'm trying. I really am. But know that within this lifetime, spiritual being, you're a spirit being having a human experience. You are not here just to merely survive. You are here to be poured into. You are here to thrive. As you are poured into from yourself and from others, you are able to pour into other people, right? To other beings. You are here to be loved. You are here to be held. You are here to be nourished. And yes, you are here to receive. So let's keep softening together, okay? And if something in this episode has resonated with you, has spoken to your soul, I want you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with another Empress that you see is maybe in survival mode, or learning herself how to receive. Because this is a journey that we can hold each other's hand and hold each other, gently accountable for these things, and say, let's receive it, and it can be easy, right, if you let it. So thank you for sharing this sacred space with me, and remember, you're not broken. You're not behind. You are rising right on time. So until next time, keep rising, Empress.